Hey, what's up? I'm Zach Aguilar. I play Tanjiro Kamado in Demon Slayer, Ether in Genshin Impact, Byleth in Fire Emblem Three Houses and Super Smash Bros., Genos in One Punch Man, Koichi in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, David Martinez in Cyberpunk, Edgerunners, and so many more. And I'm here on the
Points of Experience podcast.
Coming up, we have one of the most exciting names in not just anime, not just video games, anything where voice acting is involved. This person who you just heard from he's all over it. I mean, we're talking Genshin Impact, we're talking Demon Slayer, we're talking One Punch Man, we're talking Fire Emblem. The list goes on with one of the most talented. You can't even say up and coming anymore, even though his explosion onto the scene has been somewhat recent. He's been around for years, and everything that he does is really inspiring and magical, and it really is setting the bar on this new standard we talked about with some of our other guests. But Zach Aguilar, we see it in Cyberpunk. Just nominated for a Crunchyroll award for Best Performance. It is no mistake why that is. A great leader, as he is in most of these properties, a great genuine human being, as we've come to talk about a lot of his hardships in this episode, how he got to where he is, the hard work that went into, creating and affording him these opportunities to get into the industry. What goes into all of his performances, how he kind of assesses and breaks down his process, what he knows behind the scenes. His technical knowledge is, I must say, on par with me, and I hold my technical understanding to a pretty high standard. He's the full deal, the full package, the full Monty. I was just so thrilled that he decided to join us on the podcast. This has been such a treat to have people on the show, and we're really trying to raise the bar with the guests and the quality of what we do here on the Points of Experience podcast. So we'd really appreciate if you could take the moment to like this video, subscribe, review us on whatever platform, Spotify, Apple, you are listening to, because it really will help us continue to make some really amazing quality content. So coming up right now, we've got one of the best in the biz, Zach Aguilar. Okay, dude. So what was the cataclysmic meteor that happened today?
Yeah. So I was about to. I worked on a session this morning, and everything was fine. I went to go get lunch. And, we're recording remotely. Sometimes I kind of cut it close. Like I was getting my setup ready about, 10 minutes before I'm about to link up with everybody. And I see just the spinning wheel of doom on my Mac, just going, and it's just going and going and going. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a program or something is interfering with another thing. So yeah. I'm just going to hard shut my Mac off. So I just turn it off all the way. I turn it back on, and it won't boot. I have it gives me this little cancellation symbol saying that I cannot it just won't even let me load into any user profile, black screen of death. It's like a disk repair thing, and I can hear this disk in my Mac making a little sound. But granted, I've been using this old 2013 iMac for about, it's 10 years. It's 10 years old. So, and I've already had to repair the drive on it once. And it's so funny because I just got a new computer, and I was thinking to myself, man, I definitely need to back up all my stuff from that Mac, so I can start using my new computer. And then all of this happens, and, long story short is I was on my new Mac trying to get everything set up. I have the the Apollo Twin, which kind of made things a little bit more complicated. I love my Apollo, but there's security settings that you need to go in and change in the Mac, and it's not like you just go into the little settings app on the Mac. You have to hard restart the Mac and then literally go into the boot the like safe mode of the Mac in order to get to these security settings. I had to do all the security settings, and then by the end of it, I realized I needed a new Thunderbolt cable. I needed a Thunderbolt 3 cable because I was using a Thunderbolt 1 cable because my Mac was so old, and I was using a converter. And it's so crazy that like this happened. And the worst part about it was this session was an ensemble record session. So I'm just like, I'm calling the director. I'm like, I am so sorry, guys. Like, I don't know what happened. My Mac shut off. And granted, everybody's super cool with it. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry. Like, take your time. Like, just give us an update, you know, in the next 30 minutes. Let us know what's happening. And I had to just give them a call and say, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I can't do this. So what I did before coming on here was I drove myself to the Apple store to go get a Thunderbolt 4 Pro cable so I can connect my Apollo Twin to my new MacBook and wing my sessions for tomorrow. And then hopefully the weekend will give me some time to reconfigure my whole setup, like with my monitors and my booth. And, you know, it's just a big pain.
That's a nightmare, dude. That is the, you know, where they say, when people who do a lot of theater, they say they have dreams that they're on stage and they're naked and they forgot all their lines. Like, that's your version is the voice actor nightmare where your computer breaks down, you can't connect to Source Connect, your interface is exploded. And what you were saying, it's like, you probably think the world is like, the world is ending if you don't get this shit to work right now. And everybody's going to think like, oh, it's frickin' Zach making us all sit around and wait here. This asshole.
That's exactly what I was thinking the entire time, and I'm like, I am so sorry, guys. Like, I'm doing everything in my power to make it like I ripped my house apart, like looking for a cable that was gonna work for this thing. But that's the thing, is like I have the same. You can get the two confused. Like a USB-C cable and a Thunderbolt cable look identical. Like it's not a Thunderbolt, but a Thunderbolt 3 cable and a USB-C cable are like, they look exactly the same port. They'll both plug in, but if it doesn't have that little lightning symbol above on the cable, it's not a Thunderbolt cable and it won't work. I tried. Like, it plugs in and it charges my computer, but it doesn't work for my interface. So yeah,
Lesson learned.
It was so crazy. Like, my house right now is a mess because I pulled open every drawer, every cable, everything that I could find to try to like plug it in and make it work. So yeah, it was just a lot. And
has this experience now, are you going to go buy a second computer that's like on the ready now so you never have to, like, if this does happen again, you've got like, all right, backup already up to date, insert ready for session? Has it gotten to that point, or are you like, I'll write it out again, I don't think that's going to happen again?
You know, I think what I'm going to do this time is like my next big thing in this whole ordeal is trying to get all of my software and things off of my other computer with the drive dead. So I think what I'm going to learn from this ultimately is to back up all of my stuff, because I did not have anything backed up. And I was thinking about it in my head too. It's just so weird that this just had to happen like today.
It'll never happen when you want it to happen. And like, if you had backed it up, the thing would have lasted a lifetime, you know, it never would have died.
Exactly.
I had a similar thing happen for a session of mine where the display went out and I thought the computer fried. Like, I just like the back display, like the backlight went out. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's it. The computer is done. But also the battery had died too. And I knew this thing was on its last legs. And I was like, I got to get this to an external display real quick and try and get all the files over. And I'm about like halfway through the file transfer and it just completely died midway through. So I got half of my shit. So I know that life all too well, man. It's scary.
So it was so wild. You know, just trying to make it work. And I realized I was sitting there. I sat there for like an hour trying to get stuff to work until realizing, holy crap, I need a proper cable for this because it's not working. And I sat there, I waited for my Apollo Twin to download all the drivers and everything that it needed to, and it's like 3 gigs, and I'm just like sitting there like, please hurry, please download.
I have the same interface. I know how insane it is, and it makes me. So are you somebody that became interested in like tech and all the like the technological side of this industry? Did that enter your life because you were interested in that stuff, or did it become a necessity because of the career that you were doing? Are you interested in the tech side of things, or is it just like the gamer crossover? Are you a gamer too? Is that
yeah? Oh, totally. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Oh wow, hard to say. I mean, I think I'm interested in everything, because I know that this is like, all of it is the business. Like, you yourself are the business. Yeah. So when I just kind of like to be in control of my own destiny. It's kind of like if you open up a bar and you don't know how to like cook a sandwich or make a drink like on the menu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would want to know how to do all of that stuff, because what if I ever needed to? You know, what if somebody doesn't show up for work and for whatever weird reason, I just felt like I needed to learn how to kind of do this. So I learned how to use, I learned how to use Pro Tools, and I got the whole iLock thing, and I was super interested in that. And then I grew up playing piano, and I got a MIDI keyboard, and I would mess around with it and kind of like make things sometimes. And I remember looking up like, what's a compressor? What's an EQ? And I watched like 10 different YouTube courses on it, like just random videos, like, you know, oh, this is how you do this. You tune the EQ and like, you know, just whatever, some random British person or something.
Dude, I listened to probably the same guy. He talks about all his various compressor settings. Like, and if you go here, you make mic compressor settings and make it sound like this.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think that I've always just been interested in it. Like, one of the things I did is I went to a convention, one of my first ever conventions in 2015, and I made some money from that too. In 2015, I think I was like 17 or something. And I remember going with my dad. I was a guest at this convention. I had just started doing VO, and the money that I made from that convention, I took every single bit of it and more from out of my own bank account at the time, and I went and bought myself a Neumann TLM 103, because I knew that I was going to need it. And then a year later, I ended up getting a contract deal with Pandora Radio, funny enough, to do all of these commercials and stuff just from my house. And I think back about that, like, wow, like just really investing in myself, you know, and taking what I was making and always putting it into something that was going to further benefit my career in this whole thing. I mean, sure, it's a risk, but I guess I was just hopeful that it was going to work out.
Uh-huh. That's like one of the there's a lot of reasons I'm going to compliment you very shortly in this show, but I could tell before even knowing this about you that you are somebody who, like, whatever it is, you work your ass off at. Like, and I'm curious to dive into that in the various capacities. But that's like, I feel like when you look at the people who are successful, and I don't mean to say this like patronizing you for your age, but at your age, you're talking about being 17 and having the insight to say, like, you know, I think I'm going to need this microphone eventually before, like, home studios are even, like, remotely, no pun intended, something that people should consider. Like, that requires a level of thinking, like, almost like a chess player, like, thinking steps ahead. Like, you can't say, like, all right, I just made this money from this convention. Now I need to invest that in this in case I get a job later down the line that's going to want the best microphone and have all this. Like, that's a risk you're making from a business perspective. And I would like, where does that for you in your life, where does all of that, like, drive to understand and be ahead of the curve and know that, like, where does that come from for you? Because if you started so young, were you just reading, like, books about, like, business? Where did that start?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with, like, my parents. They always, like, pushed me to do really well in school. I have a crazy backstory actually too, where like I kind of went through a lot as a kid. I'd like, not to get too down in the dumps, but when I was younger, I had like an injury. I broke parts basically of my back. I broke my heels. I broke my wrist. I was in a wheelchair for like a year, and I like went on a whole recovery period for multiple years. The TLDR was I was jumping on a trampoline basically, and I was on a drug that like lowers your bone density, and so like all my bones kind of cracked at once, and it was not a great thing. So, you know, that kind of left me a lot of like, and I was 9 when this happened, so it left me a lot of time to just kind of like ponder life and think about doing something that really matters to me, and voiceover specifically, because I just loved anime and video games so much, was the one thing that I just kind of honed in on. And I thought, you know what, this would be cool. This is kind of like my reason for living in a weird way. I really want to do this. Like, as insane as that sounds, like, I don't know, it sounds kind of cheesy now thinking about it, but like 9-year-old me, that was what was in my head at the time. And so I just kind of had this fire lit under me ever since then. And I slowly, I started recovering from my injury, and I was about 12 at this point. And I'm like, Mom, I want to do acting stuff again. Because when I was younger, my mom she had me in doing like on camera stuff. But I'm like, I want to do acting stuff, but I want to do voiceover specifically because I love anime. I love video games. And she's like, what's anime? Or like, I don't even know if she knew how to pronounce it. My mom is always saying like anami or something. Like she, she doesn't even know entirely what it is. I mean, she does now, but
I'd hope so.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, like, I don't know. I just kind of went through a lot, I think, as a kid, and that's probably what sort of set me on this path to just try to think outside of the box. Because when I went back to school after all of this kind of had happened to me, and I tried to like interact with the other kids, I guess it didn't really seem, it just seemed like I was so different from other people. Like I had a hard time fitting in after all of that. Like I would look at all the other kids and look at what they kind of complained about in their life, and I'm like, it's so hard to relate to them because I don't think that they will ever understand like what I went through. Yeah. And just like even be back here in school right now was like this is a chore. This is something I had to fight for just to be back here. So yeah, I guess I was really passionate about voiceover and decided I would fight for that too.
Wow. First of all, that's insane. And I really, you are like a living anime protagonist with that kind of story, man.
It is. That's what I tell people. I'm like, that's my anime backstory.
Yeah. You have such a different perspective on, to relate a little bit. I had kind of a medical thing happen to me recently in life. And I remember I've had shit happen in my life, don't get me wrong, and I've lost a lot of people, and when I had something that was very, like, mortality was looking at me in the face kind of really closely, I never experienced, like, this idea of, like, if I get through this, I am going to, like, love life as much as I humanly can. I'm going to try and be the best person that I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can on things. And I'm not saying sometimes it takes that, but when it does happen, it's like you're either forced with presenting yourself to rise to that kind of adversity and be like, I want to experience all these things, or it's very easy to kind of like let that consume you. It winds up becoming one of those polarizing things in my experience. Maybe some people are able to just kind of like suppress it and go on the way they are, but I'm sure that comes with a lot of their own challenges. But for you, though, it sounds like really early, really young, you found a love, which is very rare for a lot of people to say, I love this thing and I want to pursue something in it. So I'd love to actually unpack even maybe what it was at that age that made you fall in love with video games or anime. Was there a specific show or a game? Like, what was it that to you about anime, or was there a specific show that you were like, this is the shit that I love and I want to do something in my life with?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So growing up, I really loved Naruto. I thought that was one of the coolest shows ever. I don't know.
Yeah, man, I'm still a freaking Naruto.
You have it. Yeah, there's a sage mode and everything.
Dude, my cat's name is Sasuke, so yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think Naruto, I don't know how I kind of related to it. I think I saw a kid that was kind of outcast, for reasons that he couldn't control, and in a way I think I kind of felt like that too a little bit as a kid, and so I just thought the show was super interesting. I got into it. I loved Naruto. I loved the whole like trying to like improve yourself, become stronger. Like he had a dream and he was going to accomplish that dream no matter what, even if it seemed impossible. Everybody laughed at him. So yeah, I mean, I just love Naruto, and then I kind of found my love of anime sort of through Naruto, I would say, and then I went on to watch like Death Note, Code Geass, so many other shows. I couldn't even tell you how many. Like I was around when kids these days will not know. I mean, I'm only 24, but I remember when Netflix used to be physical. Like they would send the DVDs, and my parents would order DVDs, and I would order DVDs, and we'd get them in the mail. But I remember when Netflix went digital, and they were still doing DVDs at this time, but they were also trying out digital. And they added a ton of anime to their library, like Bleach and all sorts of, like, they added like the first like 100 and something episodes of Bleach. And I watched all like 100 episodes. And then there was even more and more. And I would just watch like every new anime that popped up on Netflix because I thought it was so interesting and cool. I think what I really loved about anime specifically was these kind of darker stories, I guess, that were told in an animation form. And you don't really see that too often in Western cartoons. And if you do, it's kind of like you have to unpack it yourself mentally. It's not as obvious that, oh, there's a whole dark story going on. You know, it's more of a hypothesis or something like, oh, I think that this could actually mean this, and then that, and that's why those things are sunshine and rainbows. But really, those sunshine and rainbows don't stand for that. That stands for like death, the Grim Reaper, and everybody's dead in this show. You know, like this is SpongeBob, everybody's dead. Yeah, or, you know what I mean, or something like how they have all those conspiracy theories about what a show means. Yeah, but anime just kind of shows it to you. This is what you get. Somebody's dying, and that's that. Like
real consequences. That was kind of the first time for me where you saw like a main character die and they weren't coming back. I mean, what's his name? Asuma, when in Naruto, when that happened, I remember because I was watching that very early. I literally felt like heartbreak. I felt like heartbreak for a show, like a kid show. I was so young. I was like, oh my, they're not doing this. Where's the scene where he drinks the Phoenix down? Like where is it? And it's like no, that's it. He's gone. I was like, holy crap, that's insane. So I totally understand that love, and I think that's why a lot of people do fall in love with it. And it's funny how anime is having this little bit of a renaissance right now, where it's cool to be an anime fan. Where
totally
you see like dudes who are like the biggest gym brawlers wearing like Death Notes hoodies and stuff, and I'm just like. 10 years ago, if I was in the gym wearing that same thing, I'd be getting made fun of in a way, or maybe not a gym, but in high school. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to see this change. How it's so cool to be an Attack on Titan fan or to be a Demon Slayer fan. It's such a, I mean, Dragon Ball Z always had this kind of cultural pulse to a degree. I think even that was like where the nerds and the cool kids could kind of have common ground a little bit, because it was like these alpha males going insane. Yeah. People could resonate with that. But now there's these deep stories that you're talking about where it is an underdog story, a kid that came from nothing, rising up and conquering the world, so to speak. I fell in love with that. So it's cool to hear you say that. It definitely makes sense. Now, where did that link of love for that, when did that turn into, oh, there's people who voice these characters, I want to do that? How did you make that link?
So I remember Googling the cast of Naruto randomly. I think I had thought about it, and I thought kind of, oh, this would be cool. I wonder who the actors are behind this show. And in my mind, I don't know why, I just assumed that they were all like kids, and I think that's why I really wanted to do it myself, because I was also a kid. I'm like, oh yeah, like let's see who's doing this. And to my surprise, they weren't kids at all. And then I learned, and I was like, and I would and I like went on YouTube and I Googled like a Naruto voice actors panel, and I found out what everybody looked like, and I thought it was just the coolest thing. I'm like, wow, these people have such unique voices. Like they don't sound anything like how they look. Like in my head, I'm so used to them talking as like a character, but there's like some dude's face, like this voice is coming out of him. Why does he sound like a 15-year-old? Like what? How does this make sense? How does and it's same with Miley Flanagan too. She's so unbelievably talented and amazingly sweet, by the way. But I saw a panel of her a long time ago when I was first looking all of this stuff up, and I'm like, how does she do that? Like, how does she make her voice like scratchy? Like that's so weird. but awesome.
That was a very big surprise for me when I started realizing that a lot of these characters, Luffy, Naruto, they're voiced by women, and I was like, they capture the essence of this young boy mentality so perfectly, and even age, the way that the progression of these characters going into adolescence and for some of these characters adulthood. It's crazy to see someone just fully embody a character like that, and it's kind of magical. And I had very similar experiences myself, and I remember seeing when doing some research on you, you had done your first instance of, I don't know if you had been working already. It was some panel you were on. You were talking about your first thing. You went to like an Anime Expo open call thing, and you wound up auditioning. So at what point in your career was that like before you had worked at all, or had you done some things and then that was just like sugar on top of the cake?
Right. So I had done, I believe at this point I had done just like a few very small, very, very small things like bit parts, Walla in a few random shows that I got brought in for. And basically nothing really else beyond that. I remember I was trying to like why hasn't the studio sent me any auditions? Like, why is this so hard to like just get, like, all I want is an audition for a character or something, you know what I mean?
Has a name.
But they just keep bringing me in for Walla, like random voices. I'm like, I want to audition for something. And I remember I was in line at well, it's so funny because I went to Anime Expo. I know a lot, this story kind of gets portrayed, I think, in a different way, because a lot of people think that I just went to Anime Expo for fun and then just like popped in line and then like this all kind of happened for me. To be honest with you, my sole goal for going to Anime Expo was just to go, like, to try out for this thing, to go to this competition. I remember I was like stalking their Facebook page and I was like obsessed with it. I mean, like, I had notifications on it. I'm trying to figure it out. And then they said that every morning they release like 100 tickets or something that you need to go get, like a ticket for a call time. And so I remember like lining up super early outside Anime Expo, just waiting to get in there. I was like one of the first people in, ran in, went right into the exhibitors hall, got the little ticket, and it said like, okay, your call time. And this is like at, I don't know what this is, like 8 or 9 a.m. or something. Like, it's pretty early. And it says like, yeah, your call time is at 2:30 or something. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to just hang out and, link up with some friends. And so I did that. So don't get me wrong. Like, of course I still loved anime, but like truly this was the one reason why I really, really wanted to go to this, was so that I could go try out for this, kind of this competition. And, what happened, one of the times when I was there is, my time was coming up and you just kind of watch all these other people perform, right? And you get kind of nervous. And I'm like, oh man, they like, this studio already knows who I am. Like, I think that they would have given me an opportunity. Like, there must be like, they haven't given me an opportunity yet. So like, even if I do this, I doubt anything's going to happen for it. And all the doubt was kind of like setting in. And one of my friends, I don't even know if she remembers this at all, but it's Erica Lindbeck. She was there at the, just hanging around the booth, talking with people, because we were all kind of like, everybody was sort of friends. We had all known each other from working in, or from taking some of these the classes at Bang Zoom Entertainment. And she kind of pushes me in line, and she's like, we're gonna do this, like, we're gonna do it together. I got a ticket too. And so I was like, what? She's like, yeah, we're both gonna just like hop in line and do it. And I can't remember if she had a ticket for that exact time or how she actually got like in it. But basically, she went and did her audition before me. So how it worked is they lined us all up by a wall, and the first 3 people in the line got scripts to look over, and you could choose what script that you want. Like, if you want the evil wizard, some big giant monster villain, or like the young hero. And so I chose like the young hero when they gave me the script. I remember like I was shaking when I went up there. I kind of blacked out. I don't really remember much of anything. I was so nervous, like reading the lines. Because it's like it's sort of like on a little mini stage in front of all the people around you. But truly, I really have Erica to thank for just kind of like giving me that that extra push that I needed to go in there. She's like, oh yeah, like we'll just do it, whatever. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's just for fun. And then 3 weeks later, it might have been 2 or 3 weeks later, they gave me a call and said, congratulations, you won.
Wow.
So it's one of those moments, you know, and I think about it a lot. Like, I think a lot about it when I doubt myself on something. Mm-hmm. And I think back to that moment. I was like, if I gave into my doubt back then and I just kind of curled up, didn't go and do it and didn't push myself, where would I be right now? Would any of this have happened? Would it still have happened in some way? Or was that my moment to, you know, was that the chance that I got? So I think about that a lot. And I think because that I had that experience, I have a lot of faith in myself for random things that I probably shouldn't have faith in, just because I just feel like, you know, you have to try. You always have to at least try, no matter what, even if it looks like it's not going to work, you have to try.
It's so interesting how our lives can get altered by these. Like, you can find specific moments. Obviously, that was a huge part of you getting started in some capacity. It's not to say that you hadn't been grinding and that couldn't have happened another way, but it's definitely for you a clear, identifiable mark to say, like, wow, I can go back and say, like, that led to something tangible. I won something. Like, I did a good enough job to where people recognize the hard work that I've been putting into whatever it is I've been working. And it sounds like you'd been fiending for this opportunity for a minute to get your shot.
Right.
I would love to know, like, so how did you get that? Where you just decided at some point to take classes at Bang Zoom, and then they liked you and they're like, come in for Walla and Bit Parts? Is that how that kind of started with you getting in to meet these people and how they somewhat knew who you were?
Yeah, so that was pretty much it. I remember looking up, like, how can I, you know, what studios record anime? Where can I do this? And I found a lot of, like, Funimation. And I'm like, oh, Funimation's in LA. And so for the longest time, I always thought that Funimation was Bang Zoom, because I just thought all anime, just because Funimation is such a huge, or Funimation was a huge, you know, anime distributor, I just assumed that they did every anime, but that wasn't correct. And so then I found out Bang Zoom existed, and ended up just kind of looking on their website. I saw they were linked up with another thing called Adventures in Voice Acting. Mm-hmm.
Tony Oliver.
And he's the director for a lot of, like, really notable, huge anime out there. And I remember just begging my mom. I said, Mom, I found an anime class, and you get to like dub the anime like if you were working on it in a professional studio. Like, that blew my mind at the time. And I was like, please, Mom, please just let me take one class. I'll never ask you for anything ever again. And my mom, and it's like a 1-day class, and my mom was like, okay, sure, you know. And she kind of thought I was probably a little crazy at the time, and she, you know, wasn't. I think the reason why my mom was kind of more on board with it was just because I had already gone through, like, a lot in my life, and just to see her kid probably so passionate about something after, like, all of this hardship was probably somewhat inspiring or something to my mom. So she just kind of wanted to support me, and she did believe in me, but it wasn't like a full, like, oh yeah, you can just go do this, don't worry about anything else here the rest of your life. She's like, no, like, you know, like, you can do this on this, like, you can have fun with this, but, like, stay in school, you know, if your grades
don't
start
quit your
sucking,
day job, so to speak. Yeah,
exactly. She's like, if your grades, if your grades start going down, like, we can't support you on this. So, I mean, it was still that whole kind of deal.
Wow. Were you regularly taking classes at Bang Zoom, and then they started bringing you in for the bit parts? Because I'm also really curious, like, and I want to break down each of these things as we get along, but you didn't go to school for theater or drama or college or anything like that, right? Specifically to study in acting, correct?
No. When I was in high school, though, when I was in middle school, I had done a little bit of theater training. And then I had also, what's it called? I had also tried out for like the performing arts program for high school. And I got into it, and I did like a semester at high school, and then I ended up being homeschooled actually for the rest of it, because I was starting to like do things in the industry, and it wasn't really a good mix, even though the high school claimed like, oh yeah, we can accommodate. But when you go back to school after like being gone, like, you know, you're working a job or something, and you come back to school the next day and you just have to skip all your lunch breaks to make up tests and stuff, that's not fun. Like, nobody wants to do that.
I can't imagine. That's crazy. So I'm curious about that, because, and we've talked about this with other guests on the show, and we've eloquently broke it down, where I think a lot of people think you need to have a Juilliard degree or whatever it is to be a good actor. It's like there's this notion where, I mean, trust me, I'm one of the biggest advocates for getting training. That's what my background is. But it's so apparent that someone like you, where there's this raw passion and dedication and love for the craft of what it is, where I look at some of your work now, and even some of your earlier work, and actually like reviewing it before doing this, it's like there is just such a, you can smell the passion and like the full commitment to these roles, even at, you know, like I look at what you did in Hunter x Hunter. I mean, how old were you when you did that?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I think that was that like 2018 or something? I don't know. That might have been.
That's fairly early on, I imagine, in the career, before, you know, a lot of the explosions that have happened, you know, Demon Slayer and I mean, even One Punch Man. It's like these roles that it's like, and that's something too I want to touch upon. But like, you had such a fire, and it's so clear in these roles. You're doing the classes at Bang Zoom. They bring you in for the Walla sessions. What is that first opportunity where they gave you the shot to kind of shine, where you are like putting those skills to the test in more than just like the filler aspect, which is, for people who don't know, Walla is oftentimes the background characters.
Yeah. So kind of like after the background characters.
Yeah, where was that first moment where you have like a character that's like is implemented into the plot, and you're either like, you know, you have some sort of effect on the storyline.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So that was pretty much all I had done up until that competition. So I tried out for that competition. They gave me a call, said, congratulations, you won. And then they put me in a show called Magi, the Kingdom of Magic.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
And yeah, so I got put in that show, and they gave me a named character. And then I had also done like some bit parts where they also had names, strangely enough, but they were never seen again. So yeah, that was like the first thing I think afterwards. And then very, very shortly after that, I went on to do a show called Ald Noah Zero. So I will say this, being put in Magi, the Kingdom of Magic, gave me an amazing opportunity to meet the producer from Aniplex. So they do a lot of anime, and they actually do Demon Slayer, funny enough. But so I met that producer, and her name was Sawako. She really liked me, and she liked how, you know, young I was, and she could tell I was like really determined. And I went in, and I was just, you know, very professional. Because, you know, this was extremely serious to me. This wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to do funny voices and like make money off of it. Yeah. It was like, this is my dream. Like, this is all I ever cared about. I remember Tony sometimes would talk about, you know, characters and weird people that he'd meet throughout the years in his classes. And I'm like, that is just insane to me. Like, how could these people not take this so seriously? Like, I take it so seriously. And from meeting this producer, I ended up getting another opportunity, I would say about probably 6, 7, 8 months later, after I won the competition. That was to audition for a main character in their next show, which was called Ald Noah Zero. And then I ended up getting that role, and then I played that main character for like 25 episodes, and it just kind of got the ball rolling. I got to work with a director. The director that I worked with ended up walking me into my first agent. And it was just kind of a whole thing, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. I mean, that's sort of how I like to see this industry starting out. It starts as like a little small snowball. Like you get through the door and then you start rolling downhill. It's a little small snowball and it just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows until it's just massive and nothing can stop it now.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's kind of where you've been at, and all the congratulations to you on all the success you've had, man. It's really,
thank you.
It's inspiring for a lot of people, I think, because a lot of, especially, you know, starting out young, and I'm actually curious we don't have to get too insanely technical here on like what your technique is, but how do you have a way you approach things? Is it what you've learned from those classes? Did you find your own kind of approach to things? Like what is that magic that's happening from the second you get to your sides to the moment you record an audition to the second you're in a booth? Like, what do you have any things that you could point out and say, like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and that's how I feel prepared?
Right. So, something that I think helped me a lot early on is with dubbing specifically was just timing. I was very fortunate to grow up and played piano for my entire life. And because of that, I just always had like some weird sense of timing. Like I could hear something in my ear and then I could repeat the same phrase and probably be only like half a second off, if not less. So it would be, you know, I could hear a whole sentence, and then I would do the whole thing, and I would repeat it just kind of like how it was. Somehow I just knew the timing, and it was just very easy for me. So I never had to look too much at the picture when you dub in the mouth flaps, so I could focus more on the script. I think something that was a huge growth for me in terms of voiceover was just doing vocal warm-ups and singing exercises. I think that truly took me from like one level to the next entirely, because I had no idea like what my range was even capable of. Like, for example,
I had no idea that I could do this, and I didn't know that this was even possible.
Like, I didn't know that I was able to do that until I had done like a ton of singing warm-ups. I learned about this thing called vocal fry, and you know,
dude,
yeah, it's just so weird.
Oh my god, dude, because you know, I was gonna ask this a little bit later, but like when I hear roles like even what you did in Hunter x Hunter or even Genos in One Punch Man, like, for people who don't understand, and this is a good lesson, I think, for people, like, you don't have to be a vocal alchemist and be able to make your voice do crazy things, because I think when people focus on that, that's where you lose the performance. Sometimes you get a little too hung up on like what the voice sounds like. But in your situation right here, for you in these circumstances, like, even for me, when I notice I'm trying to, because we have pretty similar, like, at resting vocal timbers, right? We could probably be freaking long lost brothers in a freaking dimension. I mean, just looking at us. Funny enough. But like, when I hear you, like, in One Punch Man, I can't even find Zach. Like, and I mean that as a compliment, because that's what I think really, for me, when I'm like analyzing, and it's hard for me not to analyze performances, like when I watch things, that's become like the weird part of this career. When you watch things, it's also kind of you start like
I feel ya.
not judging from like oh, that was bad, but you just like, oh, that was an interesting choice. You see how they went there instead of doing this, like, oh, how'd they
totally.
When I watch your performance in One Punch Man, I can't freaking smell Zach, and that is one of the most impressive things, and it's very early on in your career. Is that something that you had made a choice to do, or where? How did that come about from you, like, deciding to take that risk, because it's so far removed from the person I hear right now?
Right. So it's funny, because when I auditioned for that show specifically, for One Punch Man, I had done 4 auditions for it, which is kind of crazy, like, especially for an anime. Like, you know, usually it's like you do an audition and you get it or you don't get it, but they had me keep doing auditions. Same with I believe Max Middleman also did a lot of auditions for his role. So I went in, did my audition. I'm like, okay, this is the first initial one. Probably won't get it because I really want it, so it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then they sent me that email like, congratulations, you got a callback. Can you actually come in for this callback? And so I went into the studio for the callback. They're like, and I did it, and they're like, okay, cool, all right, like next. And I'm like, okay, I think I felt decent about that. I probably could have done a little bit better, but whatever. And then they call me back in again, and I'm like, whoa, so does that mean that I did a good job on the last one? Like, what is happening? Am I getting close? And I find that, it's kind of been narrowed down between a few people. And then I think I went in again after that. And for the fourth one, they just kind of like were messing around with the voice of it. They're like, okay, can you change your voice at all? Like, can you go lower? And so like, it started out me kind of using my own voice. Like, he was talking like this all the time. And so that's what I thought it was going to be. And they're like, can you make it lower? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, I'm going to talk like this all the time. They're like, no, can you make it even lower? I was like, okay, I will talk like this all the time. And they're like, oh, maybe a little bit lower. I'm like, okay, I will talk like this. Yes. And they're like, okay, that's the voice. Can you do that for like 4 hours? Can you do that for these 4-hour sessions? And growing up, every acting teacher, I think even Tony said it once in one of his classes. He's like, okay, so this is what you do. When they ask you if you can do something, you say yes, and you figure it out later. And so I was like, okay, yes, I can do that voice for 4 hours for sure. That's easy. And then during the sessions, I remember it was very taxing. Like not on the vocal cords specifically, but I think the muscles that I use like around my neck to keep like my voice, to keep that in place. Yeah. To like those muscles that I just like, it's like me like flexing my muscle like all the time. I'm just flexing it the entire session. Yeah. Doing that voice. And sometimes I was afraid to like unflex it, I guess, because then I was worried I wouldn't be able to reach that timbre again. Yeah. So there was a lot of learning, I think, while I got to work on that show about what I'm physically capable of. It
is so impressive to watch that and hear it. It literally sounds like you're clicking the voice modulator switch. Like it's so. Can you? I don't know if you can, and I hate to put you on the spot like this. Can you dissect any sort of sense that might resonate with someone, like what you're going through to achieve that smooth of a transition? And obviously for anybody listening, this takes a lot of practice, and don't think like the second you try something you're gonna get it. I'm sure you've spent a lot of time with your voice talking to either yourself
just
or in your
randomly
booth.
Trying to just like waking up in the morning and be,
hey, I would like a waffle. Yes.
Like, a lot of prank phone calls, right? Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Can you break that down, what you were doing to get to the point where you felt even comfortable to like do that in an audition?
Yeah. I think so. What I had stumbled upon was just like some singing warm-ups and a little bit of that the vocal fry thing. And I mean, I'm no like voice person,
sure,
like voice teacher, but I hear a lot about like, just kind of the way that some of these lessons that I found on YouTube way back in the day had said that a lot of people are scared of vocal fry because they think that it's like damaging to the voice. Mm-hmm. And again, like, I don't know for sure, but I tried it and it worked out for me. But it was just kind of these exercises where you would go, whoa, 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 whoa. Like that little, that kind of morning sound that you wake up with in your voice. You just kind of, you emulated a lot, I think, in these vocal exercises that I did. And I just remember doing that all the way down to like a low pitch. And I remember just kind of like just stretching my head a little bit, tilting my neck, and then finding like this whole other resonance. It's truly like really chest resonance, I guess. And that in vocal fry combined with the right support in the diaphragm creates, there's like 4 different things happening at once, I think, when I do that voice. So I think when it all kind of clicks together, then it makes it sound like that. Yeah. And then after I figured it out, I just, so funny enough, One Punch Man was the first time I had ever done kind of like a lower voice, and I didn't really do it until I was doing that callback, and then I did that whole show. And so after I did the show, then I was comfortable to try that voice out in an audition, or do a random thing. Like people, some of the clients that I work with, they love it because I get brought in for like one random guy, like, you know, like, no, my lady, I will not do that. And they're like, oh, that's great. Yeah, like we have like this, you know, muscly pirate. I'm like, cool, give him to me. And I was like,
it's me, the muscly pirate. I will kill them all.
They're like, who are you?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, but they think it's really entertaining.
Well, not only is it entertaining, it makes you just so much more bookable and viable of the person to bring in for a session, because so many of these games and these animes have ancillary characters, and like if you... For anyone who doesn't know, a lot of these contracts, it's written into the contract. It'll say like up to 3 characters or up to X amount of characters. And if you can transform yourself like that and also be believable, it doesn't sound like, you know, that's the point I was trying to make. It doesn't sound like Zach trying to be a deeper voice. It's a complete transformation. That to a studio, to a director, to a producer goes, that person is someone who I wanna have a relationship with, because I know if I get into more situations where like, all right, we have the main cast filled, let's say, so to speak, but I know I can bring Zach in and he can play the gamut here. You know, we can cover all these different things. So instead of casting 3 separate actors, we cast Zach. And he does all 3 believably, and the performance is authentic. There's enough of a change to where the character is completely separate, and that doesn't define somebody to have a career. But for you, it's just it just again shows all of that hard work that has gone into your career. And what I know probably to some people feel like this dude is reached, you know, this cataclysmic reach, but it's like I truly believe, again, I had like Kylie McNeil on, who's 20 years old. For you, both you're such at a young age, I feel like you're still at the bottom of the summit to where the potential is for what all you have to offer. It's really impressive, man.
Thank you.
And you mentioned earlier too, I want to touch on this, you talked about doubt a little bit and how those moments come. How, with a lot of the success you've had, like what role does doubt play in your life as a performer today? Like how does that manifest for you? Does it still manifest? And how are you combating that? Does it come in the form of like, I didn't think I could get this role, or this is a really tough role, or I'm working with this person, or this is a really intimidating director? Like where does doubt come into you today for Zach?
I think it's funny enough. I mean, a lot of people will think too, even at this point, at this stage, like it's gotten to a point where I'm just so blessed. And this has been I've gotten to a point where this is actually like a viable career, you know, just starting out. It's like, yeah, you know, I'm making a decent amount, but I'm not working all the time, or I'm not working every week. And I've just gotten to a point where I'm working basically every single day on, you know, not just one thing, but even multiple things. And even with all of that, I think I still experience not the same amount of doubt. It's just in different ways, in different forms. Maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome. Sometimes you don't think that you kind of like deserve some of the stuff that I'm like, I don't know if I deserved this or deserved that, or, you know, maybe I could have done something better. Like you get so critical of yourself. I mean, I know they say that everyone is their worst critic.
Very true.
And that's especially the case for myself. Like there's so many things I'm like, oh wow, like, you know, I could have done that better, or oh wow, I wish that I didn't scream on that like fighting game session before I went and did the youngest character possible, because I can tell, like I can hear my voice falling apart. But you know, it's just kind of how it is. But I have those moments all the time where, you know, sometimes I realize, do I really know what I'm doing? Like, do I even know anything about, you know, this in the industry? Because it still happens. Like I still feel that same way. Not a whole lot has changed between like 14-year-old Zach starting out versus me. Like I'm more confident now in a lot of things, and I feel like I'm better at interacting with people personally, instead of being like an awkward 14-year-old. Like I would enter a room and maybe say a word, if that, you know, be like, hi, bye, like but yeah, no, totally. Like I still feel it every single day. And different forms. Yeah, whether it's like an audition or something that I'm reading. Sometimes I question myself on a lot of auditions I do. I'm like, I don't know if I like this audition. Did I even send this in? Like, is this just bad? Like, too bad to even submit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've had those very, very similar experiences, and I first of all, it's so funny, and I think it's the sign of a great artist, because I don't think anybody who's worth their salt ever thinks like I'm the shit. I think the greatest artists are always in a constant pursuit of what can make me better, and for you to constantly have that, even in these positions where you're the title character in certain franchises, and to constantly be striving to make it better is what I've had speaking to a lot of our peers and these people in similar positions. Like, that's what elevated this career to a new standard, and it's why anime and video games are at an all-time high in terms of their appeal, because the quality of the product is so much better than what it has been in previous years, because everybody, like, the gates, like, it's like all the soldiers charging for the gate for that opportunity, you know what I mean? And you have to freaking kick ass at what you're doing, and you've had opportunities in Tanjiro and Genshin, Demon Slayer, and your Genshin Impact and the Nier series, and everything that you've done, it's all good. I watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and congratulations on.
Thank you.
That
was fun.
They haven't announced that the winners for that thing yet, right? There was just the nominations.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
But yeah, they nominated me for that voice, which was so cool. I feel like I've been nominated maybe for one other thing before, but to have it come from like the anime giant Crunchyroll, their anime awards that are apparently like the awards are. I didn't realize that they're like a physical thing that they take place in Tokyo, I believe. So that was news to me. So I had no idea. It's super, super cool.
Well, first of all, best of luck, and I loved that.
Thank you.
That was
fingers crossed.
Yeah, seriously, fingers crossed. And for anybody who hasn't watched it, it's become like one of my favorite shows of all time. It's very rare that something that a IP that came from a video game that moves to any other media, specifically animation, is successful. I can count on 3 fingers, literally. Like, I put it up there with Arcane, Castlevania, and Edgerunners and Dota Dragon's Blood. So maybe I can count it on one hand that there's like an IP that started from a video game and like captivated me independently of that video game, like the video game aside. It's just like, it's so good. Your performance is so dynamic and complex and raw and real and different than a lot of the other things that you've done. And it's just a magical world, and I loved Night City when I played the game, and to just see this different version of it in more of like a Tron way, like it's just so much more not pastel, it's just like vibrant in a very different way that adds to a whole different viewing experience. What for you was like the most rewarding part of working on that show, to a point where it's like, this is now nominated on a global level, like that? It's a different, I think, category of popularity.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing, is working on the show, everybody had hopes that, the show was going to be popular, but to this extent was definitely not foreseen. Yeah. So it's very cool to see. Yeah, I mean, some of the favorite things that I loved about the show was just the passion that the team that I worked with had. So we had people that I was working with from Poland and from Japan, and they would both get online at the same time, and I'd be up in LA recording at 9 a.m. And that was the time that we would do the sessions. They were like 9 a.m. to 1, because that was the time that worked out for everybody on a global scale. Yeah. And even then, those poor guys, like in Japan, I don't know what it was. It was like, 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. Like some of their times were completely thrown off. But everyone was there, completely dedicated, focused to every single moment on that show. They were very open to, nuance, or even like changes and stuff in the script, which I will say, at least like in my anime dubbing experience, usually everything is just kind of like how it is, and it moves at a very specific pace. Mm-hmm. But for this, I will say, I feel like it got the love that like a prelay show would get, like an original animation. Like everybody was just very tuned and honed in. So working with the team, I think, and seeing their passion just made me have even all that much more passion for that show. Every single time I went in, you know, I just tried to think about the character that I played, David, just trying to think about his, just, you know, kind of like his emotions, his goals, what he's going through, is if he's bottling up like all the stuff that goes down in the first episode throughout the rest of the series. You know, I mean, who does he ever really talk to about it, you know? And so it just makes me think about how all of this is going on in his head, and he just kind of like plays it off as like, yeah, it's like, whatever, it's not a big deal, like this is just my life now, you know, just screw everybody.
Yeah.
That
rap.
was kind of yeah, like that was his whole I think you know, persona that he kind of put on. But then you get to those points in the show where it kind of dips down a little bit, and you have room to play with more emotion. And I think I don't know, I think that overall it was just a really cool experience. Not to mention I was familiar with the game before I even recorded it. Did that help you?
Felt like, did you feel like that added, like, were there moments where that came? Because I've had that as, like, when I was working on Neo, like I had played the original game, so like terms coming up, you're just like, oh, I know what that is. Like, you don't have to sit here and spend time explaining it to me.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because like sometimes they would explain something to me about like Night City, or about like, yeah, this is what happened in this, and that's why this is happening here. And I'm like, oh, so this is just like this part in the game.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, wait, you know it? You played the game? And I'm like, yeah, like I played the game. And they're like, oh, wow, well, that makes this easier. We love that. So definitely had those moments for sure.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, it's, you know, also it seemed like a show, to comment on that you said it was like a prelay. When I first started watching it, I thought you guys did that. I didn't realize it was a dub until like the second episode. I was like, wait a second, what? And it's a credit to like your performance and obviously the production, the direction, like making sure all the things look and sound authentic. But like, I even remember there was a point where, I don't know if this was what the translation was in Japanese, but they're like, yeah, you were like, my finances are lagging or something. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, they used the term of lagging as like a way of saying like the way that it translated to contemporary like vocabulary, it just seems so authentic and real, and very like the performances you guys had were so true to picture. It was either you guys doing a great job at matching the Japanese, or just such a great job, you know, emotionally, that you tuned into what it was. So it's a success on so many different levels, and just kudos to you for like being the centerpiece of that. Like, I really resonate a lot with like what you did on that show with the success of it.
Oh, thank you. I thought that it was just awesome because I got to give credit where credit is due. The writing on that show was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Especially for a dub, because a lot of things, don't get me wrong, like I've worked on a lot of anime now, and I've seen, you know, it's very fast paced usually, and not just like from a dubbing standpoint, like from when I work on it, but from a whole production standpoint, it's always very, very fast paced. Like they give the script to the writer, or they give the translation to the writer has like a couple days to write the entire script for that episode. They write it, next thing you know, we're in the booth, and that's when we get our script, like, you know, 20 seconds before the session starts. And so it's a whole thing. And I think that the writers just killed it with Cyberpunk. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. All of the lingo that is from the game is in there. Like they have chum, they have nova, they're replacing certain words. They're like, you know what, I think it'd be better if he said this. Yeah. And sometimes I would do a line, and it wasn't sloppy enough. They're like, you know what? Instead of like saying saying, what's that over there? Why don't you start it off and say, it's that over there? Like, why? You don't need to even say what. Like, just say like, stat over there.
Yeah.
I can say that, and they're like, yes, you can. I'm like, that is crazy, because if I ever did that for anything else, they would tell me like, no, you have to enunciate every single word that you say. What's that over there? Like,
what freedom, right? What freedom to, like, that's, I think, what you're expressing is what allowed that freedom for performance, because you can, like, relax into the character a little bit, where sometimes those
Right.
technicalities start dictating things you can do in a dub, whereas, like, for you, it's like, no, relax into what this character would do, breathe the way that they would breathe, and then, like, we'll try and tinker the way that we can to make it all match up to, like, based on what you're trying to give us. And instead of, like, the opposite way, no, you do what we're trying to give you because we know the character better than you. That's what I think happens
Yeah.
a lot of the times with these dubs specifically. And I want to jump quickly to like Demon Slayer, because this is one of those things too where I'm sure it was monumental for you in your career and pivotal in kind of the trajectory of your success as an actor.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, will end up being a compliment, so just bear with me as I get to the compliment, because it's a good compliment. I was when I first heard about Demon Slayer, my friend was trying to sell me on it. This was before I even knew what it was. Like, it popped up on Netflix and they were trying to, like, convince me to watch it. I was like, I just don't know if I want to watch this show. Like, one of my buddies was telling me. And I wound up putting it on, and, like, first episode, I was like, okay, I see where this is going, like, typical shonen anime, like, I got it. But as I, like, started giving this show a chance, and I'm specifically watching you with Tanjiro, I'm watching this character, and I don't know, and I'm curious if this was in your preparation, or if this was direction, or if it was a happy accident. Because of the trauma that this character goes through and the tremendous amount of growth that is required and training to, you know, become the character that he is now, as we watch in, what is it, the third season? Are you on the third, fourth season?
We're working on that third one.
Yeah, so to see the growth, like, I'm watching you from this character that starts off in, like, kind of this, you know, normal life, just gathering stuff for his family, making sure they're all happy and everything, to, like, this complete trauma and tragedy. And I see that in your performance, the pain and the growth and the confidence and the resilience that happens. Like, I don't know if that was, like, you warming up to the character, if that was the director saying, okay, we're going to start here and we're going to, like, he's going to build towards this, or if that was you saying, all right, I know what's going to happen to this guy, I need to get to this point eventually. But the arc that you've created for that character is so crystal clear, and it's one of the things that sold me on the show. Was that all conscious for you? How, like, what was the decision to get, like, for him specifically?
Yeah, so going into the show, I had done some research on the manga, and I, you know, made sure to read through it, like, what I could. Every single season that I work on, usually I just read through the manga again. I've already read the entire thing, by the way, but I make sure to read through it just to kind of, like, get a feel for what is happening, what's going on. And, like, the point that we are at right now in the story. I knew that he was, I saw that, like, him go through all of that tragedy, and I just tried to slowly just add in things that, you know, he's gaining more experience. He has he loses everything kind of in the first episode except for his sister, and I really tried to, I mean, I'm an only child, so it was a little, like, weird for me, because people ask me that all the time. Yeah. But I tried to just kind of, like, put my family members, or, like, my mom and my dad in Nezuko's position. I'm like, if I only had, like, one parent or, like, one sibling, like, left, I had nobody else that was related to me, like, in the entire world. Like, this is the only family member that I have left. You know, what are you going to do for them? And so he's going to the ends of the earth to try to find a cure, really, to turn her back into a human. It's really just his whole goal. It's his whole reason for living. It's the reason for the show. Because if she had died at the beginning of the show, I don't really know what he would have done. Yeah. Like, I don't know, he probably just would have withered away and died or something. He wouldn't have had that motivation to move forward. So I think he always has that kind of motivation. And yeah, just kind of started him out, like, a little bit more, I think, just doughy-eyed, bright-eyed, even though all the stuff goes down in the first episode, just kind of giving him that more of a novice, you know, thing. Like, he hasn't really killed any demons. He doesn't know what's happening. He's just trying to get through it, to the point that we're at in the series now, where he's, you know, killed multiple demons. He's protected all of his friends, and he's pulled off some incredible moves that he didn't even know that he could do. So I think that kind of slowly helped us develop his confidence to where it is now.
Like what you're saying, it's like even in the way that he experienced that tragedy, it's the way that you portrayed it in the performance, and obviously its existence in some capacity in the original Japanese, but the way that you had portrayed it, it's that kind of naivete to experiencing this kind of tremendous loss, which is kind of real. Like for anybody who's experienced, like in my experience, you don't really know how to deal with that type of trauma. It can be surprising, and it can take you off, like it can unguard you. And it just seemed so authentic to now see even the way now he experiences rage and the way he experiences like this tremendous like vigor to overcome and conquer things. It's like, it's such a very satisfying arc of a character to watch, and I think it's part of why it's one of the most successful shows. Obviously, everyone loves the cool arts, the sword styles, and everything like that. And you guys are a great cast. You, Alex, and Bryce, you guys are all lovable. The characters are all very lovable, and
thank you.
But I mean, it's a lot of it really, especially from a dub perspective, it's beloved for a reason, and a lot of it is because you guys have such hardcore, dedicated performances.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just been so cool to work on.
Yeah.
I feel really blessed being a part of the show, and just kind of getting to do this while I can, because this role, it truly is like one of those once in a lifetime roles. I think like I don't know. I see Bryce kind of grow up as this industry goes back, or as it kind of goes on. I think he might have did like a 10-year anniversary thing for Sword Art Online, and it makes me think like, wow. Is that going to be me in 2029 doing a 10-year anniversary for Demon Slayer?
Yeah.
Thinking back like 10 years of working on this show, how my life has changed from just being a part of it and the opportunities it's given me, getting to travel all over the world and like meet fans of a show. I've met celebrities, and celebrities' kids have come to meet me just because they have watched the show. Like, it's insane. It blows my mind every time. And it's just hard to remember like how important this thing that you're working on is to other people, because it's such a small team. It's me, the director, the engineer. I record it at home, and then I go into the studio. Sometimes it's just a small group of people, even with social media, until you do a panel at like New York Comic Con, it's packed with like 5,000 people. Then you realize, oh wow, like, yeah, this is pretty important. Like, this is no pressure.
There's no preparation, I think, for that kind of global phenomenon that happens. And I mean, you've had it happen to you in multiple occasions. It's not just Demon Slayer. I mean, you've experienced it in some level with earlier, like even One Punch Man was really beloved and had virality, but Genshin Impact, I think, those two Goliaths combined, It's kind of like you're standing on two juggernauts right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when Genshin came around, the funniest thing about it is that when I got that audition and I went in and I auditioned for it in person, I thought it was going to be a small Chinese game, like a really small mobile game. I'd done so many mobile games that they just like kind of bring you in for. It's not really a huge deal. Yeah. You do your session, you walk out, you never see it ever again, and you might never hear about it ever again. And because I'd done so many of those at the point in time, this one was a little bit different because the director specifically like requested that I read on this. I had never worked with a studio that recorded Genshin, so the director asked for me to read on it. So that's what made the studio contact me and said, okay, because I had worked with this director on another game. And so I read for like a few characters, and it just so happened that that the protagonist of the game is the one that they gave me, which again at the time, like, I had no idea what it was. Same with this thing. I started recording Genshin around the same time. I believe it was around the same time I started doing Demon Slayer, which was somewhere around like end of 2019-ish, somewhere around there. And I just had no idea what it would become. Like, not at all. No, people didn't even talk. Like, I worked on the game and they had like a little beta, and some people were hyped for it, and some people, like, it had a small little following of a community. I'm like, yeah, I think that's probably where it'll stay. I didn't imagine that like half the internet would be playing Genshin Impact.
It's insane. I mean, I was aware of the beta because I don't know how I became aware of it, but I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I loved Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
And I was like,
oh, me too.
Breath of the Wild, anime style. And so
100%.
When it came out, I played the shit out of Genshin when it first came out. Like, I played the shit out of it because it was just so... It found all the right niches of everything from like appeal in the anime world to character design to the voiceover interaction to the world building, open worldness, quest. Like, it had all the right recipes for success. And obviously you can't know that when you're recording it,
right.
and it just kind of explodes in your face. But something really fun about Genshin, I saw a video that you did, I think on your YouTube probably, where you like impersonated all the different characters. Dude. But I have to say, man, that like obviously I've loved your work and I think you're extremely talented. But watching that video, and it's kind of like what you were saying earlier with your piano rhythm, that's where I was like, this kid is the real fucking deal. Like, he's got insane chops because you are able to embody so many things so quickly. You're almost like you have a bit of like not a layer further than impressionist, because it comes from like an actor's heart, I think, where you're impersonating a little bit of what these people are doing, but you're also capturing a little bit of what their soul is. And you're like, even in those quick seconds where you're like, I see you grinding these lines in your head and you're like, do it like this, no, do it again, find this. I'm like,
you can tell.
I can see you mining for the minutia, and it's the rhythm and it's the heart and everything. And I was like, fuck, dude, this is fucking good, man. Like,
oh, thank you.
It's just so impressive. Like, what has it been? What has been the most, like, obviously surprising? You said is probably the success about it, but what has been like the most rewarding in the performance aspect? Because your character, he doesn't say many lines, so at least in the game, like, you know, because you're somewhat of a silent protagonist. Are you defined as a silent protagonist?
I believe so. It's very weird because he has full on conversations in like the voice menu.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people, I guess. I don't know. I think people just like to meme and stuff because they like to hear the voice lines while they're playing the game. You know, they don't want to like go into the menu and like do all that. Like, they want to experience it live, like in the world of the game, which I totally understand. So I'm not entirely sure. I would say that he is like a silent protagonist, but it's very much like I don't know. He's like a Link in a way.
Yeah.
He's like Link, where he does all the sounds but he says some attack moves, and then every once in a blue moon he'll say, I don't know, a word or a sentence in a cutscene, and it's just kind of random. And a lot of the fans feel like that too. They're like, it's so random that he just like said that line. Why doesn't he talk more? And I'm like,
yeah.
But yeah, I think one of the coolest things I got to do for this character, and it's my favorite quest, it was this quest called the We Will Be Reunited quest, and it's where he sees his sister, like his long lost sibling, because that's sort of the traveler's goal, is to find his sister, or find the sibling. So he sees his sister again, and she's kind of like working with the bad guys, and there's just sort of like this emotional moment, and we got to fully voice that cutscene, and I got to do two versions of him. One version of him was like, you know, he's still the young protagonist, and he's kind of ignorant to the world that he's in. He doesn't fully understand what's going on. And then there's his sister, and his sister has lived for thousands of years apparently now in this world, and there's a whole reason why she's working with the bad guys. But anyways, because you can choose the male or the female at the start of the game, I get to record lines for the male protagonist and then the male like evil one, right? So that was very cool, a cool kind of mix up. I got to be evil as him for a little bit, or like technically evil, I guess. And then I got to do his typical standard, like, oh no, like come back with me, or whatever he says.
That's got to be fun. I mean, when you get to do those, and obviously there's like a lot of like those updates too, where you get to play as the character and talk about like, a lot of the new things that they have. It's a really magical game, and it's captured the hearts of a lot of people. I was gonna ask this through Genshin, but I think it'll be more fun if I expand it to just the roles you've played. I guess like Tanjiro, you got the Traveler, you've got everybody else, Genos, Byleth, Fire Emblem. All your characters are in an epic frickin' brawl. Who do you think's coming out on top?
Oh wow, that's so funny. Oh man, who would win out of all of them? Let's see. I don't know. I have to believe that it would probably be, weird. I think it would be between Tanjiro and Ether. I think it would be very close between the two of them. But I feel like Ether has some unknown, like ethereal power still
that we haven't discovered yet
within him, because a lot of people forget he's technically an alien. Like he's not even from that world, so maybe there's some kind of secret locked up. This isn't like foreshadowing or anything. I have no idea. I wish I knew.
This is not canon.
The company would kill me. No. So I don't know. Maybe I'm leaning towards Ether, but then again, I don't know. Maybe Tanjiro would find a way, like brute strength. He would find, I don't know, you could break every bone in his body and he'd still keep, trying to kill you with a sword. Like, I feel like that's totally on brand for Tanjiro. So maybe, I don't know, it'd be close between those two for sure.
We got to get one of those, like, those people who make like those epic battles between like Goku and Superman,
Oh,
like, they should do one between Tanjiro
where they dissect it. And try to figure out like what is it that we know about each one and who is going to win against who.
I'm down for that. Whoever does that, we got to get them to.
I want to see that. Yeah, that would be good.
Well, dude, this has been an insane pleasure. I've been in awe of your work. I really, truly believe you are one of the most talented people in this industry, and
thank you.
I just can't wait to see all of what you are going to continue to do. It's just so exciting to see someone have such passion and like desire to see their work get even better, and I'm just a fan. So thank you for doing this. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've been wanting to come on for a while now, and I've been seeing the clips pop up from other people too, and I'm like, oh wow, like it looked like, I love the way that, I don't know, I love the editing and stuff you guys do, like how it's just very much catered to the online audience. Like it's boom, here's the topic, here's the answer, like that, you know what I mean? Instead of just having it be like, a long thing. Sometimes people will do a YouTube video and they'll ask, like, for example, it's like, if you make a YouTube video out of this, like, who would win, Tanjiro versus Ether, and then you put it at the very end, like at a 20-minute video. So I've loved seeing the clips and stuff, and I've wanted to come on for a while. I'm glad it worked out for like the schedule and stuff. Because when you contacted me first time around, I remember like I was going through it. It was nuts looking at my schedule. I might have been working on like the Demon Slayer game or something, or one of those projects where they're like, okay, you have like thousands of lines, we have a month, good luck,
dude.
4 hours every day.
I truly, I can only imagine the amount of work that you do, and again, like I just appreciate you coming on, and thank you for all the kind compliments. You are one of the hardest working people in this freaking industry, and it's impressive to see. You're lucky you're young, because you have more stamina than I do, man. I get like, sometimes when I get those double days, I'm just like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have it in me.
I will say I have been like pushing back on those as much as I can to try to not do some of those, because there was a time when I think that was the time when you initially contacted me, like I was doing at least 8-9 hour session days, and I was like just not talking at all after those sessions, so I could be ready for the next one the next day. And I mean, that was like one of the most brutal times of my entire life. Like I was so tired, and I think about trying to do those sessions now with And I mean, again, I'm only 24, but even just thinking about it tires me out. I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to do that again. I don't know what I would tell production. I'd just tell them, sorry guys, like you got to give me some more time.
Yeah.
Like I can't do it. I like vocally, physically, mentally, like I can't keep up with it. But I think that, it's a great problem to have, and I feel super blessed just to be able to do this and to work so much and like have all these opportunities. I'm just one of those people where I can't turn down opportunities anymore, because that was, that's where I came from.
Yeah.
I have to, like, you can't forget what started it all. And for me, it was just always trying to do something, taking a class, meeting new people, and overall doing that competition, even when I could have swore in my head, like, I remember exactly how I felt about it, and I was completely turned off to it. I'm like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Decision's final. I'm going to just go home. Like, I'm completely, and I had that. It was solid in my head until Erica, and again, she probably doesn't even remember this, until she convinced me to step back in the light. She's like, nope, like, let's just do it. Like, just do it. It'll be fun.
Sometimes that's all it takes is that push, and your gratefulness is very apparent, and your generosity is very, very apparent, and I think a lot of people appreciate that about you, and I see it when you're at the cons, the ones that I've been at, that you've been at, the amount of people that line up for you, and everyone walks away with a smile on their face, and that means a lot to a lot of people, and to know that the hard work you put in, and that's also the thing too, when we're talking about these double sessions, knowing if you can do it, because not everybody's going in there at 100%. I mean, I'm not trying to, there's no specific person I'm calling out about this, but not everybody is not, there's a lot of people in every industry that make careers, and they're not emptying the tank every time. And it's, when I look at all your performances, I see the tank, without seeing you at that session, I know that you're emptying the tank in whatever capacity that is, and it's tough to maintain that. So I'm appreciative of all the hard work you do, and for the industry, and for what is the standard now. You are one of the pioneers of the new generation of voiceover, and this
so crazy.
It is crazy, and you deserve every ounce of it. And it's kind of, you're a part of this new voice actor celebrity movement. I know that's probably a hard pill to swallow, but that's kind of the
voice actor celebrity.
It's real.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild, because I hear what you're saying. Like, voice actors it's kind of been taken to a different level with the explosion of anime and video games, and people actually caring about like the voices behind them now, and conventions, and I mean, social media, a way for us to promote ourselves versus just being like, a voice in the shadow that no one ever hears about because you don't have a face to put to it. But then you go on and you do like a live stream or something, or you start a YouTube channel, and all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh, like I know this guy, and he's kind of cool, like and he does voices. I mean, and like they're things that I know, it's not like some dude just doing a Mickey Mouse impression. Like, I could go play a video game and that's him, like that's his voice. So I mean, overall, man, I just feel super blessed again to be a part of this. Thank you for all of the compliments. I'm not good at taking I'm not used to so many compliments, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And your professionalism and just how you conduct yourself doing these, and like this whole podcast. I mean, it's awesome. Like, you can, like, you're on top. I mean, look at your setup. Like, who else has a camera and light set up like that? I bet you got everything. You got the
We're very, dude, I think we're a lot more similar than we might imagine. It's very odd that we look so similar.
That is so funny. I love how you have. I bet you watched like a lighting tutorial. Did you not? Like, you watched like you get this light on this. I forget what it's called, and then you have the. Dude,
I have a background in film production, man. I have your key light, your fill light, your backlight, your hair light. I mean, my whole. I came from, I've only been really in this voiceover industry, like, for the capacity that people know me as like a voice actor for like 2 years, because
really?
I moved out here in 2020. And before that, I was living in New York doing theater, film production, indie film, TV. I was doing television series, movies.
No way.
Yeah. I was producing movies, and I made my living really doing promos. Like I was the voice of Nick Sports. That's like how people.
Damn.
That's how I made my living.
What am I doing? I got to interview you.
Heck no, dude. Well, listen, I would do anything you asked me to do. You have my absolute thanks and gratitude for doing this and for sharing all the wisdom that you've done. I think you are wise beyond your years, and you have the experience to back it up, and the intelligence and the hard work that you've put into understanding everything for yourself. I mean, it's like it's so funny too, because I mean, I know you love video games, and that probably had a big part of it, and I know you stream and you have a YouTube channel, but even the effort you've put into your setup here, which I know you're not doing your voiceover jobs here,
yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
I just know that you have an absolute standard for like professionalism and quality, and it says a lot about who you are without me even having to know you. Like the fact that you've gone through like the finite details of have a good setup, know like good lighting to like make your background look dope as shit. Like I appreciate that.
It's so funny because after seeing your setup and like your lights, I'm like, damn, I gotta improve my lights. I have like these two. I have the two key lights on each side, and I have my camera tuned to like 6100K or whatever. Like for the lights.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like watched a whole tutorial on how to do this, and I set it up one day, and I'm like, you know what? I think it's good enough. But I'm planning, hopefully once I move and I'm planning on moving sometime this year, get a new space. Hopefully I'll get a chance to set up a whole like studio
shit.
with all the cool stuff and have it all. I mean, yeah, right now, just in my room that I have here, if you could see beyond what's on this camera, you would probably die because it is just a mess.
Dude,
it is awful.
I understand that. There's a mess everywhere. I'm like, my cable management is atrocious right now near my computer.
Oh, same.
So
that's one thing I really want to improve on, cable management, to try to just make things look clean.
Yeah.
Because whenever things are clean, I have a better mind space. Like my mental's just better. I wake up, I feel very organized, and like I know what I'm doing. Maybe that's why I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, because I just have a big mess all over my desk.
Well,
and I haven't picked it up
the
yet.
The part that matters looks extremely put together. So
Thank you.
That you got that going for you. Trust me. But no,
Heck
it
yeah.
looks great. I love watching everything you do. I'm so excited to see more of your success. I would love to. We ask most of our guests this, and I know you've given us so many like personal experience nuggets of wisdom. So we ask everybody on the show this question, and it doesn't have to be related to your professional career. It can be personal. It can be whatever you really want, the way that the question inspires you. And the question simply is there an experience you've had in your life that has motivated you, changed you, inspired you, words of wisdom that has lasted with you, that you feel passing those things on to somebody else might have some value? And like, I'll give you one of mine, for instance, as I usually try to come up with new ones. I might repeat myself at some point, so forgive me if this is the first time this is happening. But, I decided to run a marathon without zero training. And while it was one of the stupidest things I've ever done in my life, like, I paid for it royally in the physical aspect, it showed me that my limits are extremely far beyond what I think they are. And I think that applies to a lot of people in life with many things. Like, we think we have a threshold point, and that threshold point is actually way beyond what we could even assess and imagine. And obviously you should do things safely. Voiceover, like, don't think you can scream for 10 hours, but I think that we have the capacity for a lot more than we've ever done. And running a marathon with no training really showed me that. So is there anything for you? It can be professional, it can be personal, that really inspired you that you think would inspire somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think just don't. I think just being truly, I think being persistent in something and being willing to accept failure and not looking at your failure as a bad thing, but something that you can grow from. I feel like that is the difference between people who are successful at something they do versus people who aren't successful. A lot of people will take failure and they think that it's just a big stamp of disapproval that's on their forehead forever. But learning from that failure, it's funny because the things that I do, I don't necessarily expect to succeed in all the time, or even like other little ventures that I that I just do for fun. Or if I ever started up a restaurant or something, I wouldn't expect to be like massively successful at it right away. I would expect the failure. And even if I didn't expect the failure, I would say expect failure and embrace it and learn from it, and then use that as an experience or as a point of experience, where use it as a point of experience that you take it and you use it and you grow from it. Because without those failures, there's so many things that I did or did wrong and I would have never grew. And it's just, there's not enough knowledge in this world. Like, you can keep learning and learning and learning. So embrace your failure and just be persistent. If there's something that you really want to do, don't give up on it.
A life-changing change to make in your perception of what goes into anything you do in your personal or professional life. I think recognizing, like you're saying, your failures as opportunities for growth can literally be the thing that elevates you to a different level in whatever you're pursuing. Because I think what you're saying is a lot of people, and I was one of those people, write those failures off as like, those, you're tainted. You've been blacklisted because you made this bad choice. But like, can you watch the tape? Can you assess that moment and say, what did I do? Not necessarily wrong, but what is the thing I did that I think I can improve upon, and use that as an opportunity for growth. It's extremely vulnerable to do that, and I think it's actually one of the biggest indicators of someone who has a lot of strength, to recognize their vulnerabilities or weaknesses and to try to grow upon them. So thank you for sharing that. That's very, very relatable for a lot of people. I think we all struggle with assessing our failures and wanting to admit that we can do something from them.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was so young, a lot of people, I think it's just weird because I am so young, and I was young when I started doing all of this. I had been trying to do this for, I don't know what it was, like 3 years before I really got like a serious opportunity to audition for something. And that's just an audition, like the audition's not even like, you could audition for a million things and still not get a single one of them. So I think that's just kind of important to remember, is you just kind of, you should stay with it. You have to stay with it, stay focused, and just learn from mistakes or failures or little things that slip. But I realize it's hard. A lot of people will view it as like, that was their one shot and they blew it and it's over. But if you didn't learn anything from it, like, then maybe it is over for you if you didn't learn something from it. But if you have something that you can look back on and learn from it, then it could take you to a whole other place. Like you said, a whole new level.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Zach. Best of luck. I will be rooting for you. I voted for you in the Crunchyroll Awards.
Oh, dude, thank you.
Everybody else should. If you haven't watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, please go do it, and then you'll immediately want to change your pick if you did not vote for Zach already. Is there anything that is been announced that you want to talk about, that you can talk about? Obviously, we give people an opportunity to say, hey, check something out if they haven't. Is there anything that people should be watching if they haven't or playing?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I know Fire Emblem Engage recently came out, and I have not played it myself yet, but I know that there's a lot of great reviews on it. People love that game. I had a blast working on it, so go play Fire Emblem Engage if you haven't. I love playing Byleth, and he actually has voice lines now, so there's some dialogue you can hear. It's not just like like that's not all you hear.
That's I've loved the Fire Emblem series, and I was gonna say, like, it's got to be so exciting to see that character go from Three Houses to Smash to now come back and Engage. That's got to be such a rewarding, like,
it's so crazy.
Yeah,
it's so wild. Especially, I played Smash when I was like 7 years old on the GameCube with one of my best friends, and I'll never forget it. And yeah, it's just weird to be a part of it, or be kind of like immortalized, I guess, in in the game.
For real. It is kind of
Yeah.
a stamp of immortalization being part of the Smash series. I think it's a character that gets beloved in a whole different way for people that just, it's one of the most popular games of all time. So kudos to you. Congrats on everything. Play Fire Emblem. Engage if you haven't. And everybody, that was one of the most enjoyable episodes we've had with Zach Aguilar. So thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for having me. Points of experience, baby.
Yes,
check it out.
Thank you, dude.
Go.
Wow, so much can be said about one of the, rising stars of this industry. He is, not only is he like a rising star, he is like the fucking star of like the anime and video game industry. Like when you think about anime, it's hard to not, especially from a voice acting perspective, to put Zach's name up there in terms of like these pivotal roles and in contributions to all of these wonderful titles. And his hands have touched, or his vocal cords have touched, some of the most prolific titles and properties. And it's great to have people who are good people, genuine people, talented people that are a part of this and raising the standards for everyone. I really think Cyberpunk is such a wow. It's just. That's one of the most recent things that has like changed the game from a visual and storytelling and connecting the tissue between games and animation. And I'm excited for what the new version of that is. We saw it in Arcane and all these other things, and having really amazing performances is just so fantastic. I'm just so happy we got to have Zach on. He is a real treat. He's so down to earth, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, review us on the Apple and the Spotify. It really means a lot to us. And share the podcast with your friends and your family. Let them know what's up. Thank you once again, and we will see you all on the next one.